Hey everybody, I'm Andrew White, and this is Everything's Bigger, the inside story of the people and power shaping Texas. Today I'm speaking with Representative Vikki Goodwin, who is the presumptive Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor. She'll be running against 75-year-old Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, formerly known as Danny Gobe. Patrick ran a chain of sports bars in Houston before they failed, and he declared personal bankruptcy. Then he got into sports broadcasting, which naturally led to political radio and his years now, almost 20 years in politics, including 10 as lieutenant governor, and now he wants 4 more, which would make him 80 years old at the end of his term. Listen, lieutenant governor is the most powerful statewide office because they single-handedly control what gets put to a vote in the Senate or not. That's a big job. Let's get to know the person who wants to take that job, Representative Vikki Goodwin. Thanks for listening to Everything's Bigger, the inside story of the people and power shaping Texas. How's your day?
It's good. It's
Yeah?
good.
Is it busy?
Lots of phone calls. That's what campaigning is all about. Trying to talk to people, don't answer their phones.
Yeah, I know. With the new technology, you can just sort of send the phone to voicemail and you're like leaving voice messages over and over and over.
Yeah.
What's your favorite voice message to leave?
I'm leaving them with, if you think we need a change for Texas, call me back.
I'd call you back.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good. How many phone calls a day?
Oh my gosh, hundreds.
Yeah, that's part of the job. That's the part of the job that I think most people don't know about.
Yeah.
The behind the scenes view of what it takes to be a politician. Hundreds of phone calls a day.
The exciting part is when somebody does engage, they answer the phone and then they're surprised to hear from me directly.
Yeah.
They think I'm a robocall at first. And so when I say, no, I'm actually the candidate, I'm running for lieutenant governor, we have some great conversations.
Yeah.
And just hearing from people what their issues are. And so often it's, well, I just got notified that my health insurance costs are quadrupling.
Yeah.
So many people saying things like that. And then I tell them what we tried to do, because I'm on the insurance committee in the legislature.
Yep.
And what we tried to do isn't going to help.
Oh.
So we've got to come up with better solutions. And that's why I tell them, I'm all about trying to figure out better solutions.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me get the table set here. So I obviously stepped out of the race, but I got to know you over the course of the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Because everywhere I showed up, you were there, and you were there when I wasn't there. You're an incredible candidate.
Oh, thank you.
So happy to endorse you. So looking forward to a Lieutenant Governor, Vikki Goodwin. But most people who follow me may not know you like I know you. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to share that relationship a little bit, expand it, and give you a chance to tell them who you are.
Yeah.
Before we get into the deep, complicated stuff, the most difficult question I have, all right, what's your favorite queso and why?
My favorite queso.
Important reason is why.
Well, I have to say, Torchy's has like the best queso because it's got like the guacamole. It's got all sorts of good stuff in it. So, and
That's a solid pick.
my daughter's favorite. So you have to go with your kids' favorites.
Is this the time for me to pull out my Torchy's gift card and just show it off that,
Obviously you go there a few times.
Well, I don't have my Torchy's gold queso card where you can have free queso every day for the entire year. I'm a 2-time owner of the queso card.
I have no idea. That's a real thing?
It's a real thing. And as a 53-year-old, I'm not sure it's a good thing. So tacos are important, especially if you're a state rep from Austin.
Absolutely.
You got to know your tacos and your queso. So you've been a state rep for how long, and what area specifically in Austin do you cover?
Yeah, for 8 years almost. I'm in my 4th term. I represent Western Travis County. So think Lakeway, Steiner Ranch, Circle C, the western side of the county.
So what was your biggest surprise when you first entered the state house? What were your expectations and what was the reality of it?
Yeah, my biggest surprise was that we actually, as a Democratic caucus, worked with the Republicans. So in 2019, we had just ended an election where 12 Democrats flipped seats, and that got the attention of the Republicans. They said, hey, what happened? How were they able to flip so many seats in the House? And we were all talking about school funding.
Yeah.
And so that was really the big issue of that session. And I was surprised that there was some collaboration, getting to know the Republicans.
Yeah.
I felt like at the state level, we did a better job of that than at congressional level because we spent a lot of time on the floor talking to one another, and then in the evenings going out to dinner, getting to know one another, building relationships.
So who was the Speaker of the House?
Dennis Bonin.
Okay. Yeah, and you've seen a few speakers
Yeah.
over the years, right? So
Mhm.
from when you started to where you are today, how has the culture of the House changed? Good or bad?
It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
I will say my first session was the most collegial, the
Mm,
most collaborative, and then it went downhill after that because in 2020 there was the stolen election,
mm.
and as a result the Republicans wanted to change a bunch of election laws. And the thing was they saw how successful Harris County was in their elections. They did drive-through voting, they did 24-hour voting, they did a lot of things that turned out a lot of voters. So here we come back the next session and change it so that they can't do that anymore.
How bad is bad then? Like what is it like right now? Like I've never served in the House, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just an outsider looking on the inside. I've got lots of friends who are there. They
Yeah.
say it's bad. In a corporate culture, you work with people. You have to. You don't have a choice, right? You
Mhm.
may not even like them, but you're still going to work with them.
Yeah.
How would you compare that to the state house right now?
Well, the Democrats went on a quorum break when Trump wanted those 5 seats in Texas, 5 congressional seats. And that makes it difficult because the Republicans are got angry about us leaving the state, blocking them from being able to do the business. Now they knew we were going to do that. I mean, it makes relationships harder to maintain. We were angry that they went along with Trump. They were angry that we did a quorum break and stalled things.
Yeah.
So, very tense.
So, okay, back up. How did you get into this mess in the first place? Right? What made you want to run for office? You're a realtor, right? You have a life, you have a husband, you have a family, you have all these other things you could be doing, probably have hobbies as well.
Yeah. I never really thought I would run for office, but honestly, in 2016, when Trump won, I thought, what's going on?
Yeah.
Even Republicans thought he wasn't going to win. And so it was like, wow, what's happening in the world that led to Trump being elected our president? And so that's what got me motivated to run for office. In fact, that's what got a lot of those Democrats who flipped seats in the Texas House to run, just the sheer unbelievableness
Yeah.
of Trump winning.
Shock.
Yes.
Hey, was your district a red district before you ran and you flipped it? Or
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the district.
Yeah. So I ran against a 4-term incumbent Republican.
Oh,
So it hadn't been Republican for decades or anything like that. Actually, it had been held by a Democrat about a decade before.
who is
So
that? Do you recall?
Belinda Bolton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was in, and then when she was beat by Paul Workman, and then the next session or the next year was when they did redistricting, 2011, and they redrew that district to be more Republican,
Okay.
thinking that he would hold it for the next decade.
And you pulled it off. How'd you do that?
Being a realtor was very helpful because I had sold homes in almost every neighborhood in the district. So
Yeah.
I knew people throughout. And as a realtor, as a business person, you don't talk politics really. So I didn't know if my clients were one party or the other. They didn't know if I was one party or the other. We just talked about issues
Yeah.
and my support for public education, my support for people being able to be successful. And so I was able to get a lot of people to vote for me who knew my character.
Yeah. And you won that election and then won re-election and then re-election and re-election.
Yeah.
So you've got some skills. What hobbies did you give up to get here now? What are you missing most? Because what I'm trying to figure out is how do you fit in? You don't get paid. I mean, you get paid a little bit to be a state rep,
Yeah.
but it's a total part-time job that has to somehow fit into your current job. And what does that mean?
Well, I will say that probably the biggest thing I gave up is traveling. So I've been traveling a lot this year, but all in Texas.
Yeah.
And that's one thing my husband and I really enjoy doing together. Although we did take for our 20th anniversary, we went to Victoria, British Columbia,
Oh, wow.
took a week off and went there. But yeah, I really enjoy traveling. Now my kids are in different states, so I travel to see them.
Yep.
How
How old are your kids?
So my daughter's 26. She's the youngest.
Okay.
And when I first ran for office, she was a senior in high school. That was one of the things that also made it easier for me. I was at a stage in my career where I could step aside and run for office. My kids were grown. She was a senior in high school
Yeah.
and graduated by the time I won.
The reality of being a politician and like yourself, a successful one, uh, you have to fit it into your family, and politics doesn't wait.
Hmm.
You know, if you have a vacation planned, if you have a big event happening and there's something going on in the session, you got to show up. What's that sacrifice like? How does your family deal with it? You know, it can't be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough at times.
Yeah.
So, my kids, my son and daughter-in-law are expecting a baby, and I keep thinking, well, the baby's going to come right after the primary, and that's when things are really going to heat up moving into the general election.
Yeah.
So that'll be tough. I want to go see my new grandbaby, first one,
Yeah.
and spend some time in there in Pennsylvania. So it's not like I can just go down the street and see.
Yeah, these are the sacrifices that I don't think people realize. All right, so let's talk about some issues.
Okay.
Appropriations Committee, Insurance Committee,
Hmm.
those are some pretty big ones.
Yeah.
How'd you pull that off? And what's going on in the state legislature in those two areas right now?
Well, I finally have a little seniority, so that's
Yeah.
how I got on the Appropriations Committee. We do use seniority. So we at the beginning of session, every member fills out their request card, what committees they want to serve on, and one of the committees will be based on your seniority. So
Yeah.
that's how I got on Appropriations. Love
That's
doing.
got to be like one of the top committees, right?
It's a large committee since
Yeah.
there is there's each of the articles gets its own subcommittee. So
Okay.
a lot of members end up on appropriations, but it's a very important committee. But at the same time, I think a lot of the work is done before we even get there, and a lot of the work is done by the lieutenant governor and the speaker.
Yeah.
So we might make our requests, and obviously we do, but a lot of it is predetermined. And each of the members has a very little amount of leverage, I would say.
Yeah. And you're running obviously against Dan Patrick.
Mm,
He's been there forever, it feels like.
right.
And he's changed his name a few times. He's changed his address a few times. I think he's declared bankruptcy at least one time.
Right.
Um,
Selling beer at a sports bar.
yeah, yeah. And yet he survives.
I know.
What's the secret? Like, what do we have to do differently to pull this off?
Well, I think the secret is something that we have going for us in 2026, that we've got to have a lot of people really motivated to turn out to vote and believing that these candidates, myself included, are going to make the difference in their lives.
Yeah.
People are motivated by things that directly impact them. And right now, many people are feeling like life isn't affordable. Housing's not affordable. Just your basics. Healthcare is not affordable. And they worry. A lot of people are really stressed, even in the middle income families.
Yeah.
A lot of small business owners in Texas. Texas is made up of a lot of small business owners, and they're having a tough time right now. And they see what the governor and lieutenant governor are making promises, but they've been in office. Republicans have led the state for 30 years.
Yeah.
And right now, I think there's a lot of bait and switch. The governor is offering no property taxes. Well, session will come along. He'll say, oh, well, they didn't give that to me. They didn't hand that to me, so I couldn't give it to you.
Governor Abbott and Dan Patrick, governor and lieutenant governor, from the guy looking on from the outside in, it feels like they don't talk at all. It feels like they don't even like each other, right? Like the two, number one and number two in the state. If that's the culture that's being set, where do you go from there? How do you address the culture issue, first of all? Because if you do become lieutenant governor,
Mm-hmm.
there's probably still going to be a lot of Republicans in the House and in the Senate.
Right.
And you just never know. So how do you deal with the culture issue that you want to create versus what you have there today?
That's a big question I get all the time. And the thing is, I am easy to work with, but I'm also firm. I am not going to support vouchers when I'm lieutenant governor. I'm not going to allow a budget to pass that has even a dollar going towards vouchers.
Amen.
Now, that's going to be a big sticking point if Governor Abbott's still there, but nope, I'm not even going to think that.
Here you
It's going
go.
to be different governor.
Lieutenant Governor Goodwin and Governor Hinojosa will
That's
be
right.
working hand in hand.
That
But
is right.
talk about a different setup, right? Two people who like each other working together as opposed to what we have today.
Right.
We've seen, Dan Patrick outmaneuvers Greg Abbott all the time, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
We all know who ultimately controls the process there. It's Dan Patrick, and he's done it over and over and over again.
Yeah. What
Um,
really surprised me this time was that Governor Abbott vetoed Dan Patrick's number one bill, the THC ban. I was surprised, but that just shows you the power of the people. So a lot of small businesses came to Abbott, the veterans, even Republicans saying we use cannabis products for our pain management. And
Yeah.
so he got so much pushback on that he vetoed the bill.
Okay, he also talks a lot about property taxes. I think one of the weaknesses of Democrats is that we never talk about property taxes. So at least we don't in the primary. Maybe we do in the general. Let's start talking about property taxes because that's what almost everyone who's voting is going to see at their, at that time of year that bill shows up.
Mm,
Um, and frankly, I don't think Democrats have a strong track record of really fighting for those causes like that.
yeah.
And I think you can do both.
Well, it's really simple. And I sometimes get into the weeds, but I'm going to keep it high level,
Yeah.
simple. So the state has been shirking its share. The state has all these funds that get created. The first one, or probably not the first one, but a recent one was the TERP Fund, Texas Emissions Reduction Program. But the thing is, they made the rules for accessing the money so difficult that nobody did, cities and counties. That's who it was meant for, to help reduce emissions, clean up your air. Well, now we've got the opioid abatement fund. We've got the flood infrastructure fund. We set up all these funds and then we create these rules that are so incredibly difficult. Or we say, hey, city and county, you have to provide 90%, we'll give you 10%. And they say, oh, the project's too expensive. We can't take on 90%. So the state's not being a good partner. If the state was being a good partner and was really sending money that's necessary to our cities, counties, school districts, then local property taxes could be lower. That's simple.
Yeah, I get it. And that really hits home for me because the 4th of July floods changed my life and some of my neighbors' lives forever. Everyone knows the flood happened in Hunt, Texas, Kerrville, Texas. Everyone knows it's a terrible
Even Travis County.
Travis County.
Yeah.
It's a natural catastrophe. I get that. But for 10 years, Hunt has been asking for flood detection equipment.
And it's not that difficult.
It's not expensive.
Right.
But the state was willing to pay 10%.
Right. And that's ridiculous.
And the county didn't have the other 90%.
Yeah.
And therefore they didn't get it.
Right.
And here we are. My neighbors will never be the same again. They lost their daughter. 2 of my neighbors lost their daughters.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier, when people's lives start to become affected by the decisions that are happening from the state, whether it's in schools where they've dropped off their kids in school in U Valley and they don't get to pick them back up,
Right.
or they've taken their kids to camp and they don't get to pick them back up.
Right. Yeah.
These sorts of life-changing decisions, you can draw a straight line back to our state leaders.
Mhm.
And the culture of the time was so different, where they don't want to spend money. It was like a bad thing to be known as a spender of funds.
Right.
So the culture there, it's the opposite. We need a government that's effective and efficient,
Right.
that runs well.
Right.
That's
You end up
what
spending
people
more
expect.
money in the end, right?
Yeah.
Because there's lawsuits, because there's loss of life. So it may not just be money, but the loss is incredible. Whereas if you had addressed it when you could have early
Yeah.
on, just think what you would save.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, schools. So obviously school education funding is a huge, huge thing. But the schools themselves and how we manage those schools, you mentioned private school vouchers. What a scam. I mean, we're going to give you money so that you can put your kids in private schools. There's only 300,000 private school seats.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 million kids.
Right.
That's not a solution.
Right.
What do we do with our schools?
Well, first of all, you support your schools. You let your teachers know that they're respected. Right now, they don't feel that way. Right now, they feel like they have to teach to a test. So there was a big push to eliminate STAR or really completely revamp our accountability, and we still need to do that. What we passed in the second special session isn't going to solve the problem. That's my irritation with the legislature right now, is that they understand what the issues are, but they don't solve the problems. And so our schools would be much better off if we were paying our teachers better, if we were respecting them, supporting them, and not taking over school districts. The fact that the Texas Education Agency has recently taken over Fort Worth, Wichita Falls, and of course they'd already taken over Houston. What next?
Yeah.
Why? We're taking out duly elected school board members and replacing them with who? Why is somebody else better equipped to solve the problems? Just not the right way to go.
You mentioned affordability. And I think that obviously is going to be an issue for a lot of people, right? Their taxes are going up, their costs are going up, their grocery bills going up, everything's going up, but except for their income. That's a problem,
Right.
and we have to do something about it. What are some of the things? I mean, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, you're one of the strongest offices, if not the strongest office in the state.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you can fight for on the affordability problem?
Well, like you said, one thing is pay needs to be higher. Minimum wage needs to be higher. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people in the state who aren't earning minimum wage. They're earning more than that. But when you bump that up, it tends to have an upward effect
Absolutely, rising
on
tide lifts all boats.
absolutely. So, raising the minimum wage, we've been trying to do that for, I don't know, longer than I've been in the legislature. I know Representative Sempronia Thompson has filed that bill every session. I have too, but you get to a point where it's like, well, why do you even push the bill when you know it's not going to go anywhere? And yeah. So that's number one. Education is number two. And I'm really worried about our higher ed. I know we've kind of focused on K through 12, but higher ed, right now, what I'm hearing is a lot of distressing stories. Professors who are leaving, being kicked out over things that they say in the classroom. There's been a real chilling effect. I was down in UTRGV recently talking to some of the professors there, and the stories that they told me were very concerning. Again, they are trying to recruit new professors, and they're having a real hard time.
Yeah. Okay. Mentioned RGV, immigration, and everything that's going on. It feels like there's we've known about the war on women, and we've seen the battle lines, and now there's this ongoing war on immigrants. What are your views on that? What can you, as Lieutenant Governor, do on that front?
We have such a mess of an immigration system, and we've got to do something because, Texas Tribune was down there recently interviewing folks, and they interviewed a builder who said that potentially 50 to 70% of their workforce is undocumented immigrants. If you take away that workforce, who's going to build our homes?
Right.
We already have a housing affordability issue here in Texas. We're going to drive up prices by deporting the workers. And so we've got to address immigration. Right now, things are pretty calm at the border, but we're still spending billions of dollars on Operation Lone Star. So
Really? There's the
yes,
money still being spent.
it is.
Wow. And there's also like a state-funded border wall, I think, that's like a little wall in the middle of nowhere that started and
It's
stops.
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You go and you see it. They have a nice little photo op fence,
Wow.
but you can walk around it. So and they're continuing to try to put buoys in the water. And I've got a scientist who has reached out to me a number of times. She's been studying it to see what impacts it will have on the Rio Grande. And she said it's really changing it more quickly than she would have thought. And they've only put in a mile
Wow.
of the barrier. And plus, they have these saw blades between each of the buoys. So it's just, I mean, what a mess.
The humanitarian side of this, listen, you don't have to be a bleeding heart liberal to understand what's happening at the border.
Yeah.
And with families being ripped apart, they may not be citizens, but they've been here for 20 years. They've been serving us for
Right.
20 years, whether we know it or not.
And not criminals.
And they're not criminals. And they're good, hardworking people.
Yeah.
And I think as Lieutenant Governor, there's got to be some advocacy. 'Cause I know it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
federal issue, but there's got to be some advocacy that can
And we're in the
happen.
state. We're where it's happening. So there's got to be some things that we can do. There have been a couple of our South Texas representatives that have put forward ideas. Representative Eddie Morales and Richard Raymond. So we can build upon those ideas.
Last one I want to talk about is healthcare. You know, education to a certain extent is affecting the future 20 years down the road. Affordability is everyday kind of stuff, and healthcare is a part of that everyday kind of stuff. And it's about to explode. Our costs are going to go up substantially. As Lieutenant Governor, what can you do about that?
So, I always say my grandmother taught me that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We've got to put more emphasis on prevention. When people can go see a doctor, take care of their health early on, it's less expensive than waiting for them to go to the emergency room and to be on lifelong medication. So we've got to work harder. In fact, again, this is one of those things that both parties agreed on during the legislative session. We need to work on our health. But Unfortunately, we don't agree on how to get there. But I've had the opportunity to meet with doctors around the state. One really cool program, just an example, is this mobile healthcare unit, and that goes around to areas where there aren't primary care doctors, and they invite people in to come and get their screenings, to get prescriptions if they need them, just to have that doctor visit, and no charge. And this is paid for by the county at the moment. But we could expand upon those kinds of programs and really make sure, again, people are getting that health care they need early on and getting the advice that they need to manage whatever is going on in their life.
Well, I tell you, Vikki Goodwin, thank you for your time. Thank you for running for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for serving in the office. It would be so refreshing to see you as our new Lieutenant Governor. I'm convinced that the more people know you and hear you, they'll vote for you. And so
Thank
thank
you.
you for everything you do.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it.